Hi everyone. Today we are going to learn a little bit about 3-on-2 defense. So this is two-man defense in a situation where there's three offensive players represented by the blue circles here, 1, 2, and 3. That's offense. And then we have our two defensive players here represented in red by the number 1 and the number 2. The yellow cone is going to represent the ball moving around the field between the offensive players. So it's always important to recognize in any lacrosse situation, whether you are even or odd. Even means that there's the same number of players offensively and defensively, not including the goalie. So 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5, etc. Odd man situation is where either the offense or the defense, usually the defense, has one fewer player or fewer players than the offensive team. So this is an odd man situation. It's a 3-on-2. Offense has an extra player, defense is short a player. Now, every lacrosse situation defensively and offensively is played differently if the teams are even or if it's an odd situation. So it's really important to recognize that every time you're on the field, every time you're going to play, know if you're in an even situation or an odd situation because you're going to play both of those differently. First thing we're going to do here is take a look at the wrong way to play a 3-on-2. A lot of youth lacrosse players get used to the idea of a man-to-man defense, meaning when they get to the defensive end of the field, they go find someone to cover. Now, in an even situation, that's a great idea. Everyone should be matched up against a player. But in an odd man situation, when the offense has an extra player, if we play man-to-man, so let's just see how that looks here. Let's say red defender number 1 goes to cover the player with the ball. Blue offensive player number 1. Red defender number 2 goes to play blue offensive player number 2. Now you probably see the problem right here. We have player number 1 covered, we have player number 2 covered, but in a man-to-man situation, there's no one to cover player number 3. Number 1 passes him the ball and he catches and scores. So we don't want to play man-to-man when the offense has an extra player. What we're going to play instead is more of a zone, or the way I like to describe it is every player has a job. So in a 3-on-2 situation, the two defensive players, they each have a job. Player number 1's job is to play ball. So he's yelling, "I got ball," and his job is to simply not go out too far. Remember, we're man down, so we don't want to go real far away from the goal. We want to stay packed in tight. But he wants to step up a little bit and just stop player number 1. Stop player number 1 from getting to the goal and scoring. Really, all we want to do here is break down, play a little body, maybe throw a poke check, and try and get player number 1 to throw a pass. Okay, so red defender number 1, he's yelling, "I got ball," and his job is to stop the player with the ball. At the same time, player number 2, his job is pass. So he's yelling, "I've got pass," and he kind of hangs out, plays monkey in the middle here, and all he's going to do is go where the pass goes. So player number 1 eventually is going to make a pass. Let's say he passes the ball to player number 2. All right. The jobs are going to switch. The jobs are going to rotate. So player number 2, who did have pass, now goes out to play that pass. Player number 1, who did have ball, now is saying, "I've got pass," and he's going to kind of hang out in the middle of player number 1 and player number 3 and kind of play monkey in the middle. And he's going to go wherever that pass goes. So now red defender number 2 has ball. Blue defender number 1 has pass. And notice red defender number 1 is kind of positioning himself a little more towards player number 3 because he's a little more dangerous in this situation. He's closer to the goal. But defender number 1 is still kind of in the middle. So if the pass goes back up to player number 1, defense can get there. And if the pass happens to come across to offensive player number 3, our defender can still get there pretty quickly. All right, so let's go over all of that again. The ball starts up top. Our red defender number 1 has ball. Red defender number 2 has pass. He's hanging out in the middle. Let's say the ball goes to offensive player number 3. Our red defenders are going to switch jobs. Defender 2 has ball. Defender 1 has pass. Let's say the ball goes back up top. What do the defenders do? They switch jobs. So now 1 has ball, 2 has pass. Ball goes this way, 2 has ball, 1 has pass. Ball goes all the way across, 1 has ball, 2 has pass. Okay, so only 2 jobs to do when you are in two-man defense. You are either on the ball or you're waiting for the pass. And this is the best strategy. It's really hard for two defensive players to try and stop 3 offensive players. But the best strategy, the best way to do it is this 2-job rotation. 1 player has ball, 1 player has pass, and every time the ball is passed, those players change jobs. Okay, now one real important rule to usually remember in a odd man situation is don't follow the pass. So what I mean here is if player number 1 has the ball and passes to player number 3, player 1 might be tempted to follow that pass and run down here and try and cover player number 3, but the ball moves faster than our feet does. So if 1 throws a quick pass down to 3, by the time this defender gets to number 3, the ball is already going to be in the goal. So don't chase passes when you're man down. Rely on your rotation right there to be able to cover those passes. So 3-on-2 defense, 2 defensive players set up in a stack, 2 jobs to do. 1 player has ball, 1 player has pass. Every time the ball is passed, those players switch jobs.